From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the News at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Ijoma Onyato.
Hello and welcome. INEC wields big stick, deregistered 74 political parties over failure to meet electoral requirements as it fixes September 19th and October 10th for governorship elections in Edo and Ondo states. Lawmakers in the upper legislative chamber move to begin amendment of the nation's constitution as Senate President sets up 56-member Constitution Review Committee. 4 people killed as armed robbers raid 2 banks in Ondo State. Police authorities launch investigation into the attack. And doctor who blew the whistle on coronavirus outbreak in China in critical condition. Plus business, sports, news from Abuja, the FCT, and then later on, news from our studios in London.
On business news tonight, Minister of Environment Mohammed Abubakar reaffirms government support in financing environmental projects after 2019 listing of green bond on the Nigerian Stock Exchange.
In sports news tonight, Nigeria's D-Tigers begin their FIBA Olympics qualifying tournament with a comprehensive victory over Mozambique in Belgrade.
And from Abuja, President Buhari receives preliminary reports from the Economic Advisory Council, promises to adopt his recommendations to drive government policy.
Call it a major shake-up in the country's political landscape, and you may not be far from the truth. Today's decision by the Independent National Electoral Commission to deregister 74 political parties may just be the path the country's journey is beginning to go to concerning electoral reforms ahead of the 2023 general elections. INEC Chairman Professor Mahmood Yakubu explains that the Commission took the decision after reviewing the performance of the political parties after the 2019 general election. As it stands now, there are 18 political parties in Nigeria, one of which is currently in court challenging its deregistration, while another was registered after the election in compliance with a court order.
The National Assembly amended the Constitution to empower the Commission to deregister political parties on the following grounds. 1. Breach of any of the requirements for registration as a political party. 2. Failure to win at least 25% of the votes cast in one state of the Federation in a presidential election, or 25% of the votes cast in one local government area of a state in a governorship election. And 3. Failure to win at least one ward in a chairmanship election, one seat in the National or State Assembly election, or one seat in a councillorship election. In order to implement the provision of the 4th alteration to the Constitution, the Commission carried out an assessment of political parties to determine compliance with the requirements for their registration. Similarly, following the conclusion of the 2019 general election, including court-ordered rerun elections arising from litigations, the Commission was able to determine the performance of political parties in the elections. In addition, they were also assessed on the basis of their performance in the area council elections in the Federal Capital Territory, which coincided with the 2019 general election. It should be noted that FCT is the only part of the country where INEC is empowered by the Constitution to conduct local government elections. Consequently, the Commission has determined that 16 political parties have fulfilled the requirements for existence based on Section 225A of the 1999 Constitution as amended. Accordingly, 74 political parties are hereby deregistered. With this development, Nigeria now has 18 registered political parties.
Meanwhile, INEC has also fixed September the 19th and October the 10th for the governorship elections in Edo and Ondo states. The INEC chairman announced the election dates at the same press briefing.
The tenure of the governors of Edo and Ondo states will end on the 12th of November 2020 and 24th February 2021, respectively. Pursuant to the provisions of Section 178, subsection 2 of the 1999 Constitution and Section 25, subsection 8 of the Electoral Act 2010, elections cannot hold earlier than 150 days and not later than 30 days to the expiration of the terms of office of the incumbent governors. Accordingly, the Commission has fixed Saturday, 19th September 2020, as the date for the governorship election in Edo State, and Saturday, 10th October 2020, for Ondo State.
Now, today's decision by INEC to deregister the political parties may seem incredible for some political parties, but for others, the decision is long overdue. With the electoral umpire insisting that the deregistered parties fail to fulfill the electoral requirements, our next report gives an overview of this decision.
The 2019 general elections saw the highest number of political parties participating in elections since independence, 91 parties in all. However, not all of them were able to elect their candidates into various positions that were contested. With this decision by INEC, 16 parties are now left to play in the political field. Relying on the provision of the 2015 Electoral Act, INEC is empowered to deregister any political party that breaches any of the requirements of the registration of a political party, fails to win at least 25% of the votes cast in one state of the Federation in a presidential election, or 25% of votes cast in one local government area of the state in a governorship election. INEC can also deregister any party that fails to win at least a ward in a chairmanship election, one seat in the national or state assembly elections, or one seat in a councillorship election. Some deregistered parties are not happy with this outcome.
It's a scam. It is fraudulent for INEC to deregister Nigerian political parties because they want to silence the voice of an average Nigerians. We're not going to take it.
They did it in 2013. Then court reversed them. Now they are now saying the thing is inside the Constitution. Okay, if it's inside the Constitution, why don't you follow how it was written there? This was enacted, was enshrined in the Constitution from the presidential election to this local government. How many states in Nigeria have we had local government election?
This law cannot be isolated from the whole gamut of Section 221 to 229, which deals with political parties. No section of the Constitution is superior to any other, and no one is inferior.
This is not the first time that INEC would deregister political parties. Between 2011 and 2015, INEC deregistered 39 political parties. Many of them challenged the decision in court on the ground that the Electoral Act is inferior to the Constitution and that deregistering them was an infringement on their rights. The parties won the case and were reinstated. Following that situation, the National Assembly amended the Constitution in 2015, giving constitutional powers to INEC to deregister political parties who don't meet up with INEC standards. The YPP is one of the parties in the still registered 18 political parties.
We are not carried away with this. It's a welcome development to us. What this means is that we should step up our game.
Some civil society organizations have been calling for the deregistering of many political parties.
These parties in themselves, a majority of them, we know, constitute a lot of nuisance in our electoral process. Some of them are either used by political actors in their quest to seize political power at all costs, to disrupt the process.
The question now is, what happens to these deregistered 74 political parties? And will INEC, in addition to deregistering these parties, tighten the measures that actually make them parties in the first place? The jury is still out on that, and we'll follow more reactions as they unfold. Kayla Megwa, Channels Television News.
Now let's look at the legal implication of INEC's decision today. Joining me live from Abuja is a senior advocate of Nigeria, Jibrin Okuchepa. Thanks a lot for joining us on the news at 10. I mean, we can already see reactions.
Thank you, Ijoma.
That's great. We can already see the parties reacting, saying INEC has done this outside the law. Is that what you think they're doing?
I think with respect to those who said INEC had done this outside of the law, I think with respect to them, they missed the point. Section 225, Section 225A of the 1999 Constitution as amended by Act Number 9 of 2017, which came into being in 2018, empowered INEC to do what they have done. And I think it's a welcome development. I believe that the reasons why these political parties are saying so is because Nigeria is used to not following the law, and when sanctions are applied, then we cry foul where there is none. When you look at that provisions of Section 225A of the Constitution as amended, it has given INEC 3 circumstances under which a political party can be deregistered. 1, if they fail to meet the conditions under which they are registered, they can be deregistered. And those conditions under which they were registered are spelled out in Section 222 of the Constitution. For instance, a political party that does not have a national spread, or that is regionally based, or that does not have office in Abuja, or that fails to register its national officers with INEC or the constitutions with INEC can be deregistered. And in your intro, as reeled out by Kayla Megwa, your correspondent, that is what the Constitution said. And Section 1, subsection 1 of the Nigerian Constitution said the Constitution is supreme and is binding on all authorities and persons. What INEC has done today means that the 74 political parties are effectively dead. And because they are dead, they have lost what I refer to as juristic personality to even challenge this action in court. And we should be able to appreciate the distinction between when this power to deregister political parties were in the Electoral Act and now that is in the Constitution. The Constitution is the ground norm. And I heard some people say INEC didn't even consult them. There is no room for consultation.
Okay, listen, just a minute there, if I can just ask, one of the arguments they're making is that, yes, it's in the law, it's in Section 225A, but it's been taken in isolation, that if you look at the entire gamut of that section, there is a procedure that precedes their removal or their deregistration. Can you just clear that up for us? Yes, it's there, but it's the process and the way it's been done that is the issue. Is that so?
Ijoma, the only way I can answer is to read the Constitution as it's written by the draftsmen of our law. It says the Independent National Electoral Commission shall have power to register a political party for a political party for a breach of any of the requirements for registration, failure to win at least 25% of votes cast in one state of the federation in a presidential election, or one local government of the state in a governorship election. C, failure to win at least one ward in the chairmanship election, one seat in the national or state House of Assembly election, or one seat in the councillorship election. So any of these gives INEC the right to register political party. And mark you, Nigeria, I do not know why we like to do what we are doing, but if you watch very carefully, during the election, some of these political parties, rather than campaigning and going out to canvass for votes, were busy adopting candidates of other political parties. That itself constitutes an unconstitutional conduct, but they were condoned. So I think we should, rather than saying INEC had done what is had done wrong thing, we should commend them for doing what they have done, because some of these political parties were just political nuisance, and which politicians use, for instance, for political prostitution. But they jump from one party to the other, and they were not really for political education. They were for means of survival. And I think, speaking for myself, we do not need to have more than 5 political parties in this country. If you recall, during the era of SDP and NRC, there was decency in our political hygiene. And I will ask the National Assembly, in the quest for this amendment to our Constitution, that Nigerians must be held to political parties they belong. Because this jumping from one party to the other makes our politicians to be like fish who cannot stay outside the shore unless they are in power. So we must not encourage political prostitution. And many political parties have indeed made the job of election in Nigeria so cumbersome for INEC to do.
All right, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Jibrin Okutepa, thanks a lot for sharing that with us and coming on the news at 10 tonight. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Ijoma.
Great. And in part 2, after the break, Bill for Local Government Autonomy passes second reading in the House of Reps. That's coming up in a moment. Do join us again.